Hello accounts people, time to go back to ratios, just a specific focus on the changes affecting gross profit margin and net profit margin. We're still finding students getting a little bit confused, so a little bit of practical demonstration should solve the problem. Right, so this company, it sells 225 at £10 each. The cost of sales, nice and simple, £5 each, so they're doubling. 100% markup. And they've got £1,000 overheads. So at that numbers, they have revenue of 2250, cost of sales half of that, and therefore the gross profit is 50%. So remember that number because we're going to see it change. And then after the overheads, at this volume, they make £125, which is 6% as a percentage of revenue. So you could draw up this as a template yourself or just do something similar and just see what happens. But let's put the numbers in. So first of all it says change the volume. Okay, up. What happens? Well, we'll change the volume up. We'll go up to 250 because the template suggests we're going to do that. So the 50% stays the same because the selling price and the cost per unit are exactly the same, but we're splitting the overheads over more units, so the net profit, which would normally just follows the gross profit in this case, goes up. And if we sold less, no change again to the gross profit margin. And this is where students are actually answering the boxes wrong in the exam. They're trying to tell us that the change in the volume changes the gross profit margin. It doesn't by itself. However, it's combined with other effects. We'll see later what it does. So change the selling price. Okay, so we better go back to our 225. It says £12, so we'll put the price up. Now our gross profit margin goes up. And our net profit margin follows as a result, even though we haven't sold more units. So that 21%, or 6 going up to 21%, is purely because that's gone up. If we sell for less, not 20% off, we can see the gross profit margin has gone down. And the net profit margin has followed as well. It's followed. So put it back to where we were. Right, next one. Change the cost of sales. So £5 each. If the cost of sales, suddenly the cost is £6. The cost of sales has gone up and the gross profit margin has gone down. And then purely following it, so does the net profit margin. If we suddenly manage to get them cheaper, the opposite. Gross profit margin goes up, net profit margin follows. Going up. Now another one that students are getting wrong, go back to the £5, is change the overheads, the fixed costs. So let's put it up to 1400. We'll see a big difference. So no change in the gross profit margin, which students are telling us it goes down in classes all around the country, blogs. And the net profit margin though does go down because that cost has gone up. So whilst the gross profit margin doesn't change, the net profit margin does. And if our overheads went down, try 800 it says, no change on the gross profit margin again, because it's below the line. But now our net profit margin has gone up. So the main ones that are causing problems is volume not affecting gross profit margin, and overheads where students are telling us, telling their teachers, even in some blogs, that the gross profit margin is changing when it doesn't, it's below the line. So let's have a look at a slightly different version of it. Let's put more than one effect together, and I think this is what is actually confusing students. They're thinking the logic. I'll get rid of, well, not get rid of it, but very slow connection. I'll hide it, and we'll be able to see what happens with multiple changes. Remember, so the ones that we've just done were one single change. Now everybody knows laws of economics. If you reduce your price, you should sell more. Sometimes you reduce your price by 10%, you sell 10% more. Sometimes you reduce your price by 10%, you sell 50% more. Sometimes you reduce your price by 10%, you sell 5% more. It's elasticity. Comes up in the business awareness unit. So now we're going to have a multiple changes, and I think this is where students are getting confused between the single changes that we've just done and multiple changes. So I'm going to reduce my price to £9. We know what that will do to the gross profit margin and the net profit margin, but I'm going to sell more as a result. I've taken 10% off, going to sell 10% more. Unity elasticity. So the fact that I sold more doesn't affect the gross profit margin, but it will then affect the net profit margin. And if I sell even more because of my price change, again, gross profit margin still stays at the 44%, but the net profit margin is now changing. If I didn't do so well, and having reduced the price, I hardly sold anymore. Again, no impact on the gross profit margin apart from the impact that the £9, the £1 off did. Back to the same net profit margin. So let's put this in, correct answer. So reduce the price, the GPM is definitely down, net profit margin usually follows, but depends on the effect, the elasticity. So the actual net profit margin, remember, sometimes it was lower, sometimes it was higher. Back to where we were then. And we'll try the next one. Increase price, of course we're going to sell less. I'll put 20% on this time, just to make a change. So we put our price up, and we can see instantly that the gross profit margin goes up and the net profit margin follows. However, in reality, we're going to sell less. So 20%, how many less do we sell? Well, it could be 200. So the volume doesn't change the gross profit margin, but reduces the net profit margin. Maybe my customers really do not like that price drop. It's very elastic, lots of competitors out there, and we can see the net profit margin dropping massively, but no change because of the volume on the gross profit margin. So we increase the price, the gross profit margin goes up, net profit may follow in proportion, but obviously depends exactly on the elasticity. So highly elastic, it went down. Not very elastic, it followed and still went up. So put that back to where we were. And the next combination, cost goes up and the price goes up. So somebody's put the price on us, made it go from £5 to £6, and you can see doing the same as we did earlier, reduced the gross profit margin and the net profit margin followed. However, we're going to put our price up as well. If we just put our price up in line an extra £1, that still doesn't get back up to our 50%, but actually our net profit margin is healthy as a result. If we just put our price up by that much though, back to the same gross profit margin, 100% markup, 50% margin, and you can see our net profit is looking healthier. So when we matched the cost, that was okay. Everything changing in proportion. Yes, back to where we were. So cost goes up. May or may not reduce depending on how much the price goes. So we would expect a reduction. By itself, the cost going up reduces, but it depends on how much you put the price up by. We had to put up the price by £2, twice as much, to maintain the same gross profit margin, but the net profit margin was fine. Cost goes down. Okay, so we've suddenly got them back at £4, and we've got to knock some off to our customers. Knock £1 off. Where are we now? Well, 56%. So as you'd expect, cost going down reduces the gross profit margin, but if we knocked off £2, we're back to where we were, 50% and 6%. So it depends again on how much the other changes. So may or may not go up. May go up. It probably will, but depends on exactly how much the price goes down and how much the price has changed by. So these effects are combined effects, but they're fairly easy to work out. And there we are.